Hi, Alan Cox here. What if you need to monitor conversations inside of your organization to make sure that um, sensitive information isn't being conveyed through just conversation as well? We've talked about DLP policies and how we can control um, the sharing of sensitive information, all of that. But what about in conversations? What about in chats, in teams, or email context, email bodies inside of Outlook, or even Viva Engage, right? So, what if we need to monitor not just sensitive information type like social security numbers, credit cards, things like that, but what about trainable classifiers like um, threats or abuse or harassment? Or what about unethical conversations in your organization, promising things that shouldn't be promised, right? These are all things we can control and monitor inside of communication compliance. And so we're going to talk about communication compliance today. It's going to be our focus, what it is, how we use it, how we set it up, and how it can be beneficial to our organization. So that's going to be our focus today, communication compliance. Let's get started. All right, here we are in the purview.microsoft.com portal, and we are going to be talking about communication compliance today. Now, communication compliance has a really interesting history, and before we get into that, I will tell you a little bit about communication compliance. Basically, it is listening to conversations. So in Teams, Engage, and in Outlook or Exchange Online, is listening to conversations that might violate some sort of policy, be it an ethics policy, be it harassment, or inappropriate content or conversations, etc. And oftentimes is used in pretty highly regulated industries, although it doesn't have to be. But also, it is often other solutions circle back into communication compliance, like insider risk, as well as DSPM. Often may go into communication compliance. So a little bit of backstory is this used to be called, back in the Microsoft SCC days, Security Compliance Center days, it was called supervision. And supervision was originally designed for SKUs that were more education SKUs, to help identify and combat cyberbullying. So it would pick up phrases amongst students that would indicate there was some abuse or some harassment or things like this, bullying, and it would then, alert somebody and notify somebody that some of these conversations were happening, and it was very successful. So Microsoft ultimately rolled that into the, continued to mature the product, and is now called the communication compliance. But you'll still see supervision, the term supervision, around today, and we'll see that in a little bit. But also, it just they were going to call it. I had heard at one time it was going to be rebranded to compliance DLP, because really that's kind of what it is. It's kind of a data loss prevention policy around conversations and communications, not files necessarily. It does deal in sensitive information types as well as trainable classifiers, but it also can be very customized to thousands and thousands of phrases you can put in to catch certain types of conversations. To give you an example, did not understand, if that phrase comes up somewhere in a conversation, you can have that in a communication policy that basically says that might speak to a diminished capacity, right? So if somebody is going to be doing an investment and that phrase comes up, that may raise a red flag. That's just an example. So, but we're going to look at that today. So we're going to go into solutions here, and we're going to go to communication compliance. When we go to communication compliance, we're going to get some overview. Now I've done a lot of this initial setup stuff. Here's some recommended actions you should do. Get to know the communication compliance. Highly recommended. Get to know it. You want to assign some permissions to the team. There's communication compliance. There's communication compliance investigator, reviewer. I'm not going to dive into the specific roles, but always as usual. Least privilege, just what a user may need to get their job done. If they only need to review things, give them the right roles accordingly, or create custom roles. So that's a required, and then optional. Create a distribution groups if you want to. If you want to zero in specific groups for specific policies, we can do that. We're going to create your first policy and review alerts and etc. We're going to take a look at some of that. Alerts is very specific. We'll look at how those are built, but in my environment, we may not see actual alerts because it does require a certain amount of policy hits, not just a single policy hit. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. First, let's go into policies. So we're going to go into policies here. And I've got a few that I have created or that are here. And we can see that this Copilot 365 interactions has no hits. There's nothing that's been hit or nothing pending. There's nothing really there. So we can actually click right here and view the policy settings, and we can see that who it's applied to and kind of what it is. So it's inbound, outbound, no OCR, content matches any of these trainable classifier. Prompt, shields, protected materials. Okay, it's pretty limited in my book. Honestly, I don't even know that it needs to be there. I created this inappropriate text one, and then I think I may have created this DSPM for AI. And so this inappropriate text one, I created here. It's applied to all users. I'm the reviewer. It is in the 3 primary workloads, which is Exchange, Teams, and Viva Engage. It's inbound, outbound, and internal. We are doing OCR, so object character recognition. 100% viewage, review to view everything. So in other words, we're not just sampling. We're looking at it'll respond to every single message. Sometimes we can get too many if we're at 100% viewage. And then here are the keywords. I'm targeting targeted harassment, threat, and discrimination, but I'm also tons of key phrases here. And by the way, we can use Copilot to generate these for us, and it's really simple to do. We'll take a look at that when we build our policy. But at the core, it's targeting these 3 trainable classifiers, okay? But sometimes they don't hit on those necessarily, but I might want to zero in, and just add some things to it. So anyway, that's just it. We can go in and we can test policy conditions. This is what this is here. We can enter our text. But here's the thing. When we talk about testing conditions, some conditions require a minimum of 3 or more words per messages, and some actually require 12 words, 16 words. So sometimes the trainable classifier is hard to test in this case, and I just tend to use phrases. I just like it. So let's do this. Let's build something, and let's do. We can do this any number of ways. Let's do. Let's do regulatory. So we're going to do a regulatory compliance for all users. I'm going to be the reviewer here. It's fine. So I'm going to type in I'm going to be the reviewer. We want to go back. We can go back to 1 month, 6 months, a year, 7 years. We're going to do global setting, which I think is set on 1 month. Scope locations, pretty much all locations. Percentage review is 10%. OCR is enabled and all that. I'm going to customize this policy because I want to change this review to 100%, just because. And by the way, we can go in here and add Copilot Studio to get those. If we're targeting that also, you may have a separate policy for that. But but just know you can, and it doesn't fall under the pay-as-you-go. There's no charge for detecting interactions from 365 Copilot Studio, but pay-as-you-go for like ChatGPT, etc. But just know that you can do that. Here are trainable classifiers, but I may want to add some keywords. Oh, and we're going to go 100%, but we may want some keywords here. So this is interesting. So I'm going to do or. I don't want to do this and this. I want to make sure these or this, right? And so I think I have, let me go to Copilot here, and I'm going to go, that was another one I was looking at, but I want to do this one here. Yeah, and I want it to give me larger sentences because I want Marcos phrases or whatever. But the point is I don't want it to just give me very short phrases because again, we could sometimes it requires a little more of 10 to 12 words to kind of get context to make sure that it's actually a hit. So so here's an example of a customer complaint. So those are the phrases. Um, but I'm going to do this. So here's the phrases we can test with. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, I'm going to ask it basically to give me keywords for each separated by a comma. Yeah, I didn't actually need the phrase there. That's if I were to post that in a Teams message to somebody and test it. But here's a customer complaints. Here's a regulatory collusion, and I'll just show you how we can do this. So we can go in here, customer complaints. If you want each one of these to be its own policy, you could do that. But what I'm doing here is I'm literally going to go in here and I'm going to add these keywords and phrases. Okay, and I can add. Okay, we can add the next one. Right, I'm just giving you some examples. So I won't do all of these, but we can see how these show up and we can add. Okay, so I've got anytime these phrases are loaded into a message somewhere, mutual understanding, of course. Okay, and then we can use OCR, that's fine. Filter out message from email blast, that's fine. Next. And that is good. It's telling me to reduce the percentage if we don't want a bunch of false positives, or if we don't want it to be really, really chatty, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and create this policy. So that's it. We've just created this policy. And again, like any other policy, I believe in being specific with your policy. This is a little broad, just to give you some examples of how what we can do. Don't need to. I might have broken these out. I might have regulatory compliance, but I may not have like customer complaints in there, different things like that. You just have to use what works for you. But that's just real simply how you can create one of these policies. I'm gonna refresh here while this is activating, and it should be activating pretty quickly. And while it does that, refresh again and see if we got it activated here. Okay, still going. So that is fine. We'll let that continue to go. That's how we create that policy. Now what we have here is we have a policy I created earlier called inappropriate text. Okay. And we see that we have new pending. And so so I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna click in here real quick. We're gonna look at this, see what's happening here. By the way, if you are not listed as a reporter, let me do this. Let me see if this happens. Okay, maybe you may get an error that says that you have to be. If I set myself as a reviewer in the policy itself, then I'll be allowed to open this and look at instances of policy matches. Otherwise, I would not. It'll give me a message and indicator. But here we can see that we have some policy matches here. So there's been a formal agreement across industry, we target each other. Okay, so there's something going on here. Here's some plain text. Here's conversation, because what communication compliance will do is it will give you up to 5 messages before and after, so that you can get the full context of what is being said, right? So it's not just, oh, here's this, and it's just been completely taken out of context. You can kind of see what the context of the conversation was. In user activity, we can see communication compliance policy matches. They match too, so we can kind of see, how much they're matching. Now, if there's no issue, we can just go and dismiss this. We can resolve the case. We can go in and we can dismiss the case. We can use a template to notify the sender of this conversation. There's a lot of things we can do here. We can delete the message in Teams. It'll just go away. We can escalate. So if we escalate, we can go and it's going to escalate to one of the reviewers. And so now, in this case, I'm the only reviewer, so it would basically give a message. I would get an email saying that I am, I need to take a look at this, blah, 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 and it would kind of escalate it up to me. Okay. That's fine. We're gonna cancel that. We're not gonna do that just yet. We can also escalate for investigation. When it does this, I'm the custodian, so I'm the subject of the investigation. Okay, it's not picking me because I'm the one doing it. I'm the subject because the message came from me. The source was communication compliance, unresolvable okay. Create a case and notify any admins who have eDiscovery Manager, eDiscovery Administrator role assigned. So in this case, I would then assign, let me see if Liam does. Liam, let's see if Mia. Okay. I think you have to do the, I'm not sure, but we'll say, all right, what is this test? And it's going to create this case. It's going to basically create an eDiscovery Premium case. Okay, not going to do that just for this right now. Now I want to point out something here. So that's basically how we manage some of these communication compliance policy hits and matches. If there's enough, you'll get an alert. Okay, I don't have any alerts, but let me just show you where this is built. So alerts are when a policy is created, and we'll go over here and we'll refresh this. They're created in Defender. When we go to Defender and we go down to email and collaboration, they really do their best to hide this. And you go down to policies and rules. We click policies and rules, and then we're going to go to alert policies. Okay, so we're going to go to alert policy. What we're going to see is we're going to see an alert rule built on the communication compliance rule we just did, and there it is. CC regulatory compliance. We can see that was just created today. Here's that category, supervision, right? It still falls under that supervision category. Now, the one that we were looking at here was inappropriate text, and here is the rule. But I want you to notice something here. If we look at the create rule settings, we'll see that it has to have, you can go up to 10,000 minutes. We calculate this in minutes. To go back and look. And then this is 1,000 minutes basically. But you can go back 10,000 minutes, whatever, and threshold of 3, and that's a minimum. So if I go here and I say I want to say if there's only one, nope, you got to have 3. So it's got to have 3 activities before it actually create an alert, not a policy match, but an alert. Okay, and so anyway, we can go 1,000. Let's do this. I'm going to create this as 1,000 minutes. We're going to, so that is 6 days, 22 hours, and 40 minutes. We can go back and look at that. Okay. So that is where the alerts are created, and that's how they're done. But they're kind of specific. You can't just test it with a single alert. So you have to give it a little time and give you enough space to start generating some alerts, and then from there you can kind of do any number of things. But most of the time, I'm really going to be in here triaging it inside the policy matches here. The alerts will just can generate some email triggers and alerts and so forth. Reports, we can go in here and take a look and see what has been matched. And so we're taking a look and we can see that recent policy matches is 0 for these matches. I find this really lags behind, but we can see the users with the most policy matches here. And so a little bit on the reporting there. But that is communication compliance. Like I said, there's a lot you can do in here, but it really monitors and controls, or kind of keeps you in tune of what's being said around your organization, even when it comes to Copilot interactions and agent interactions with Copilot. So very, very useful. Certainly useful in organizations that need to really monitor what is being said and communicated. So that is communication compliance. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you, and thanks for watching.